I never thought the woman I loved would become a stranger living in our own home, a ghost who haunted the corridors of our marriage with silence and a cold, professional smile. My wife, Sarah, and I, Mark, were the couple everyone envied. Childhood sweethearts, married at 22 and 24, with a beautiful daughter, Lily, now 10. We had the picture-perfect life, or so it seemed from the outside. But a picture is just a frozen moment, and our reality had started to develop cracks so deep I was afraid our entire foundation would crumble. The love was still there. I was sure of it, but it was buried under an avalanche of missed moments, broken promises, and a silence that was louder than any argument. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Sarah, a brilliant and fiercely ambitious woman, had always been career-driven. She started her own boutique marketing firm right after Lily was born, and I was her biggest cheerleader. My job as a freelance graphic designer offered flexible hours, so I happily took on the bulk of parenting duties. I saw it as us being a team, a unit working towards a common goal. I packed Lily's lunches, helped with her homework, attended her school plays, and soothed her nightmares. I was a constant, the steady drumbeat of her daily life. Sarah was the exciting, intermittent variable, the one who would swoop in with lavish gifts after a week of late nights at the office, her presence a whirlwind of expensive perfume and grand promises she often couldn't keep. At first, Lily adored these moments. Her mother was a dazzling creature from a different, more glamorous world. But as she grew older, the sparkle faded from her eyes when her mom walked through the door. The gifts remained unopened on the kitchen counter. The promises met with a quiet, resigned sigh. The vibrant, chatty little girl who once ran to the door yelling, "Mommy," was now a preteen who would offer a quiet hello before retreating to the sanctuary of her room, the door clicking shut like a period at the end of a sentence she no longer wanted to write. The real turning point, the moment the cracks became a chasm, was Lily's fifth-grade graduation. She had a solo in the choir performance, a small but significant part. She'd practiced for weeks in her room, her voice a little nervous but filled with a pride that made my heart swell. She made me promise, with a solemnity that was far too old for her 10 years, that I would make sure Mom was there. She promised, Dad. She really promised this time. She said it was in her calendar. I had relayed the message to Sarah multiple times. It's important, honey. She needs you there. Not just wants you. Needs you. I know. I'll move heaven and earth, Mark. I'll be there. Front row, she'd said, her eyes glued to her laptop screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The conviction in her voice felt thin, stretched taut by the sheer number of times she'd said similar things before. The day arrived. The school auditorium was packed, buzzing with the excited chatter of parents and the rustling of programs. Lily stood on the stage, a small figure in her choir robe, her eyes nervously scanning the crowd. I gave her a thumbs up in the front row, my heart pounding with a mixture of pride and a dread I couldn't shake. The choir began, their voices rising in a sweet, harmonious blend. When it was time for her solo, her voice was clear and beautiful, cutting through the air with a purity that brought tears to my eyes. But her eyes kept darting towards the entrance, a flicker of hope with every movement in the periphery. I watched her little face, the hope slowly draining from it with each passing second, replaced by a crushing, profound disappointment that I felt resonate in my own soul. The solo ended. The audience applauded. Sarah's seat beside me remained empty. She never came. A last-minute client crisis. She texted me an hour later. An emoji of a crying face. That was it. No phone call. No, tell her I'm so sorry. Just a text and a crying emoji. The car ride home was a vacuum of silence. When we walked to the front door, Sarah was there, still in her power suit, her phone pressed her ear. Yes, Brenda, I understand completely, but the metrics are simply not aligning with the Q3 projections. We need to pivot before the board meeting. She waved at us, a distracted, dismissive gesture, as if we were colleagues interrupting a crucial meeting. Lily walked straight past her, a ghost in her own home, and up to her room, closing the door with a soft, definitive click that echoed through the silent house. That night, after I heard Lily's muffled sobs subside, I confronted Sarah in her home office. The scene was a familiar one. Her illuminated by the cool blue light of her monitors, me standing in the doorway, feeling like a supplicant. "You missed it," I said, my voice flat, all the anger burned out of me, leaving only ash. "You have no idea what you did to her tonight." She finally got off the phone, her face a mask of exhaustion and immediate defensiveness. "Mark, what was I supposed to do? This client represents 20% of our annual revenue. This deal pays for this house, for Lily's college fund. I'm doing this for us, for this family, for Lily's future. This isn't about her future, Sarah." I snapped, my voice rising, the ash igniting once more. "It's about her present. She needed her mother today, and you weren't there. You're never there for the things that actually matter to her. You're a phantom, a concept, not a mom." Her composure cracked, and the raw, frayed edges of her temper showed. "Don't you dare say that. I bust my ass every single day in a cutthroat industry, so we can have this life. I provide. The least you could do is be my peace. Not another problem I have to solve at the end of a 14-hour day. The only piece you seem to care about is your own." I shot back, the words tumbling out sharp and hot. "I'm holding down this entire household. I'm being both a father and a mother to our daughter, and I'm doing it alone. You're a ghost in this house. Sarah, a CEO, not a wife or a mother. You talk at Lily. You criticize her music, her shows. You make promises you have no intention of keeping. You're a distant figure who dispenses criticism and expensive gifts instead of love and time." The fight escalated from there, a torrent of pent-up resentment, pain, and loneliness that had been building for years. She accused me of not understanding the pressure she was under, of living in a cozy, simplistic world of school plays and packed lunches. She said Lily and I were two of a kind, a tight-knit team that deliberately excluded her, that we had our own language and she was just an outsider. She sarcastically offered to give up the business, to renounce it all, and become a stay-at-home mom if it was what was driving us apart. I told her to skip the martyr routine and actually talk to me, to us. It was ugly and brutal, a demolition derby of our deepest insecurities. The worst part, the moment that felt like a physical blow, was when she finally said the words I've been fearing for months. "You know what, Mark? Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. The motherhood thing, I'm clearly failing. Miserably. Lily hates me. You clearly resent me. So maybe I should just stop trying. It's easier for everyone. I'll stay in my lane, like you said, the business lane. At least there, I know what I'm doing. At least there, my efforts yield results." My blood ran cold. You can't just clock out on being a mother, Sarah. She's not a project you can delegate. She's your daughter. "She's a child I don't know how to talk to," she yelled, her voice raw with a pain I hadn't heard before, a pain that seemed to shock even her. She looks at me like I'm a monster. Every time I try to connect, I say the wrong thing, I do the wrong thing. I bought her tickets to that concert she wanted to see, and she just shrugged. I'm emotionally exhausted from striking out. You have it so easy. She adores you. She prefers you. She even wrote in that stupid school essay that you were her hero. Not me. You. The chasm between us felt infinite, uncrossable. We slept in separate rooms that night. The silence in the house heavier and more oppressive than any noise could ever be. The next few weeks were a frozen hell. We moved around each other like polite strangers, exchanging only necessary information about schedules and grocery lists. Meals were silent affairs, the only sound the clinking of cutlery. Lily withdrew further into her shell, barely acknowledging her mother's presence, her responses limited to monosyllables. Sarah, true to her word, seemed to have fully stayed in her lane, becoming even more distant and immersed in her work. She was a silhouette against the lit window of her home office, always working, always busy, a fortress I didn't know how to besiege. I felt like I was drowning, trying desperately to keep my daughter emotionally afloat while my partner, the person who was supposed to be in the water with me, stood safely on the shore, watching through a telescope. I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't reassemble the pieces of my family on my own. The weight of it was crushing me. One evening, after I had read to Lily and she had fallen asleep, her face still looking troubled even in her dreams, I went to Sarah's office. She was on a video call, but she ended it abruptly when she saw the look on my face. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm, a tone I had practiced in my head for days. "And we can't do it alone anymore." She looked wary, exhausted, the blue light of the monitor washing her out. "What now, Mark? Another lecture? Another list of my failings?" "No," I said, taking a deep breath. "No more lectures. I've made an appointment for us, for marriage counseling, and I've found a child therapist for Lily. She needs a safe space to talk about all of this." She scoffed, a hollow, defeated sound. "Counseling? You think some stranger with a degree and a notepad is going to fix us? Fix me? You think they can magically make me into the mother you think I should be?" "I think we're broken, Sarah," I said, the truth of the words aching in my chest. "Professionally, fundamentally broken, and I can't fix us by myself. I've tried. You've given up. This isn't a suggestion anymore. This is my last resort. It's our lifeline." She was silent for a long time, staring at her hands, at the wedding band that seemed to mock us both. "And if I say no, if I think it's a waste of time and money..." I took a deeper breath, the next words feeling like shards of glass in my throat. "Then you've given me my answer. If you refuse to even try, to even take the first step to save this family, then I can't force you. But I won't let Lily grow up in this emotional war zone. I won't let her think this is what love or family looks like. We would have to separate, for her sake. For mine." The color drained from her face. "You'd leave me? You'd break up our family over this." "I'd be protecting our daughter from a family that's already broken." I corrected her softly, my voice trembling. "The choice is yours, Sarah. Counseling, or we start figuring out how to be a family apart." The silence that followed was the longest and most profound of my life. I could see a war raging behind her eyes. Pride, fear, exhaustion, resentment, and then, just for a flickering moment, a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, the one who was fierce and brave and would fight for what she wanted. Finally, she looked up, and her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. "When is the appointment?" The first few sessions were brutal, like emotional surgery, without anesthesia. We laid bare all our pain, our resentment, our deepest disappointments. In the safety of that neutral room, with a therapist guiding us, Sarah began to confess the things she'd never been able to say. She admitted that she felt like a colossal failure as a mother, that every time she saw Lily and me share a joke or a look, it felt like a confirmation of her inadequacy. She revealed in halting, painful sentences that her own childhood had been cold and distant. Her parents were workaholics who showed love through achievement and material success, not through affection or time. She had no model for the warm, engaged, emotionally available motherhood Lily needed and deserved. She was terrified of repeating their mistakes, and in her terror, she had withdrawn completely, thinking that her financial provision was her primary, and perhaps only valuable contribution. I don't know how to be with her, she admitted to the therapist, her voice small and lost. When she was a baby, it was easy. It was transactional. She needed to be fed, changed, held. The needs were simple. Now she has opinions. She has a personality. She has interests I don't understand. She loves that anime and that K-pop music, and I just find it chaotic and annoying. I criticize it because I don't know how to engage with it. I don't know the right questions to ask. And every time I do, I see her flinch. I see her shut down, and I hate myself for it. So I stopped trying because it's easier than facing that look of disappointment. I learned that her workaholism wasn't just ambition. It was a coping mechanism, a fortress, a way to feel valued and in control of a world where she felt like a miserable failure at the one thing that should have come naturally, the high of a closed deal, the praise of a client. These were tangible, measurable proofs of her worth. The messy, unquantifiable work of motherhood offered no such immediate gratification. For my part, I had to admit my own role in the dynamic. The therapist helped me see that my constant holding things down, my efficiency in managing the household and Lily's life, had unintentionally enabled her absence. I had become the super dad, the go-to parent for everything. And in doing so, I created a well-oiled system that had no place for her. I had, without malice, shut her out and created an impenetrable bond with Lily that she felt she could never penetrate. My resentment was valid, but my methods had contributed to the problem. It was a painful, necessary reckoning for both of us. The change didn't happen overnight. There was no magical flip of a switch. But Sarah started trying. Real, vulnerable, awkward trying. She began individual therapy to work through her own childhood trauma. She asked a counselor for specific, concrete strategies on how to connect with Lily. She started small. One Saturday, I came home from the grocery store to a sight that made me stop in my tracks. Sarah and Lily were on the couch. They weren't talking, and there was a palpable space between them, but they were sitting together, watching an anime film on Netflix. Sarah wasn't criticizing it. She wasn't on her phone. She was just watching. It was a small thing, a minuscule shift in the cosmic alignment of our family. But to me, it was monumental. It was a beginning. Later that week, I overheard Sarah in the kitchen. She asked Lily, her voice hesitant, to teach her about her favorite K-pop band. Lily, skeptical and guarded at first, reluctantly played her a song on her phone. Sarah listened, really listened, and instead of criticizing the auto-tune or the flashy visuals, she asked a genuine question. What is it about their music that you like so much? Is it the beat? The lyrics? It was the first genuine, non-judgmental question she'd asked our daughter in years. Lily, surprised, started talking, her words hesitant at first, then gaining speed and passion. The road was long, and there were setbacks. An important business trip caused her to miss a school art show Lily was participating in. The old shadows of disappointment threatened to return, but this time it was different. Sarah video called from the airport, full of genuine regret. She asked Lily to save her the artwork and promised they would frame it together when she got back, and she kept that promise. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was consistent. It was real. The biggest breakthrough came during a particularly intense family therapy session. The counselor gently encouraged Lily to find the words to express how her mother's absence and criticism made her feel. Lily, clutching a pillow to her chest like a shield, wouldn't look at Sarah. After a long silence, she whispered, her voice barely audible, "It makes me feel like I'm not important, like her work is more important than me, like I'm boring, or broken." Sarah started to cry, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from a place she had locked away for decades. She slid off her chair and onto the floor, kneeling in front of Lily, not touching her, just being at her level. "You are the most important thing in the world to me, Lily," she choked out, her voice thick with tears. "You are not boring, and you are perfect. You are the most perfect, wonderful girl. I am so sorry I ever made you feel otherwise. Mommy was lost, and she was wrong. So wrong. I was so wrong. It wasn't a magic fix." Lily didn't jump into her arms, But she looked at her mother, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't see a CEO or a critic. She saw a person, flawed and hurting, who loved her. We recently went on a family trip to the zoo, something we used to do all the time when Lily was little. For a few hours, there were no phones, no work emails, no talk of metrics or clients. We were just a family. I watched Sarah and Lily laugh together at the monkeys' antics, their hands brushing as they shared a bag of popcorn. Sarah pointed out a rare bird and actually knew a fact about it from a document she'd read, and Lily listened, genuinely interested. The sound of their shared laughter, unforced and light, was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. It was a fragile melody, but it was there. Our marriage is still a work in progress. The intimacy is slowly, tentatively returning, built on this new foundation of brutal honesty, shared vulnerability, and a renewed sense of purpose. We have a long, long way to go. There are still moments of tension, times when Sarah's old defensiveness flares up, or when I feel the old resentment bubble under the surface. But for the first time in years, I have hope, a real, tangible hope. I look at Sarah and I don't just see a distant soul or a ghost. I see the woman I fell in love with, scarred and weary, but fighting her way back to us. And I see my daughter starting to look at her mother not with resentment and hurt, but with a cautious, hopeful curiosity, like watching a flower she thought was dead begin to tentatively bloom. I chose a life with Sarah not because we were having a baby, but because I loved her with my whole heart. I still do, and now. I finally believe we can stick together and come through this, not as a broken family hastily reassembled with glue and desperation, but as a new, stronger, more honest one, forged in the fires of our struggle and tempered by the hard-won grace of forgiveness.